They're in the middle of it. You just have to know that they have to let this pass through them and accept the pain, accept the grieving period. It will be a period of time. Then on the other side, you say, okay, now that this has come, I'm ready to see what's coming next.
Marla Maples and Donald Trump separated in May 1997 and officially divorced in June 1999. A few months after their divorce, London's Daily Telegraph published an interview with Maples, and she offered some insight into why their marriage dissolved.
I thought I knew him, but I was married to a stranger. That's what Marla Maples reportedly whispered to her closest friend just months before she finally broke her 2-decade silence. For years, the world thought they knew the story. A beauty queen swept off her feet by America's most powerful businessman.
After Ivana, but before Melania, there was Marla. So why did the Donald split up with the small-town beauty queen? And did she really cheat on him? Here's why Marla Maples and Donald Trump couldn't make it last.
Only to have it all crumble in a very public divorce. But what if everything we believed was wrong? Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story about a failed marriage. It's about manipulation, betrayal, and a woman who discovered that the man she loved never really existed at all. The man she married was a carefully crafted illusion. The illusion that captured a heart. Long before the world knew Donald Trump as a politician, before the tweets and the rallies, he was New York's golden boy, a real estate mogul who lived like a king and charmed like a prince. And it was this version of Trump that completely captivated a young actress from Georgia named Marla Maples. He made me feel like I was the most important person in the world, Marla once confided to a close friend, years after their relationship had ended. When Donald focused on you, it was like being in the warmest spotlight you could imagine. Everything else just disappeared. But what Marla didn't realize at the time was that she wasn't falling in love with a real person. She was falling for a performance, one of the most elaborate and convincing performances in modern American history. The affair that would eventually destroy Trump's first marriage began in 1989, when Marla was just 26 years old. She was beautiful, ambitious, and completely unprepared for the hurricane that was about to sweep through her life.
The drama started when Donald began cheating on his wife, Ivana Trump, with aspiring actress Marla Maples. After an ugly public falling out, Donald and Ivana divorced in 1992, with some reports that Ivana got millions from the split.
Trump pursued her with the same relentless intensity he brought to everything else. Lavish gifts, private jets, promises of a fairy tale future. He told me I was different from everyone else, Marla reportedly shared during one of her rare vulnerable moments. He said I understood him in a way no one ever had. Looking back, I realize he probably said the same thing to every woman he wanted. The early days of their relationship were intoxicating. Trump showered her with attention that felt genuine, with promises that seemed real. He painted a picture of a life together that was everything a young woman could dream of. Power, glamour, and most importantly, love that felt all-consuming. But even then, there were signs that something wasn't quite right. Friends who knew Marla during this period later revealed that she would sometimes call them, confused and hurt by Donald's sudden mood swings, his need to control every aspect of their relationship, his inability to show genuine emotion unless cameras were rolling. She used to say it was like dating two different people, one former friend disclosed. There was the Donald everyone saw, charming, confident, larger than life. And then there was the Donald she lived with, cold, calculating, and completely obsessed with his own image. The public Donald was the one who proposed to her in 1993, just 2 months after his divorce from Ivana was finalized. The proposal itself was vintage Trump, dramatic, public, designed for maximum media impact. But Marla later revealed that even that moment, which should have been one of the happiest of her life, felt strangely hollow. I wanted to feel joy, she once admitted. But all I could think about was how he seemed more excited about the cameras than about marrying me. Still, she said yes. How could she not? She was young, in love with the idea of love, and completely unprepared for what marriage to Donald Trump would actually mean. The wedding itself was a spectacle. 1,000 guests, designer everything, front page coverage in every major newspaper.
Marla Maples married Donald Trump in 1993 in a lavish Plaza Hotel ceremony attended by 1,000 rich and famous friends, including, get ready for this,
Marla looked radiant in her Carolina Herrera gown, but those closest to her noticed something in her eyes that day. A flicker of uncertainty, perhaps, a shadow of doubt. Even on her wedding day, she didn't look completely happy, one wedding guest later revealed. She looked overwhelmed, like she was playing a role in someone else's dream. And in many ways, she was. Because what Marla didn't fully understand yet was that marrying Donald Trump meant disappearing into his world, his image, his carefully constructed reality. The woman she had been before, independent, spirited, authentically herself, was about to be slowly erased, replaced by a version that better fit Trump's idea of what a wife should be. The honeymoon period was brief. Almost as soon as the wedding photos were published, Marla began to see glimpses of the real Donald Trump. Not the charming suitor who had swept her off her feet, but the cold, manipulative man who would eventually destroy her sense of self completely. "I started to feel like I was living with a stranger," she later confided. "The man I married seemed to evaporate the moment we said, 'I do.' What was left was someone I didn't recognize, and someone who clearly didn't respect the woman he'd just promised to love forever. But the worst was yet to come. Because what Marla discovered about her husband in the years that followed wouldn't just break her heart, it would shatter her faith in love itself. The mask falls away, living with the real Donald Trump. If Marla thought the courtship was intense, marriage to Donald Trump was suffocating. Almost immediately after their wedding, the man who had pursued her so passionately seemed to lose all interest in her as a person. She was no longer Marla Maples, the independent actress with her own dreams and ambitions. She was Mrs. Donald Trump.
The wait till you see her, beautiful actress, TV host, spiritual motivator, and most importantly, a mom. You know her from her many TV and film appearances, as well as being married at one time to Donald Trump. She currently has a radio show called Awakening. We'd like to welcome Marla Maples.
A role that came with a very specific script, one she hadn't agreed to read. He wanted a trophy, not a wife, Marla reportedly told her sister during a particularly difficult period. I was supposed to look perfect, say nothing controversial, and disappear whenever he needed me to. It was like being an accessory to his life, not a partner in it. The transformation was gradual but relentless. Trump began controlling every aspect of her public appearance: what she wore, where she went, who she spoke to, and most importantly, what she said. The vibrant, outspoken woman who had once charmed him was systematically silenced. Friends from this period later revealed that Marla would often call them in tears, feeling completely isolated and misunderstood. She felt like she was disappearing, one close confidant shared. Donald didn't want a real woman with real thoughts and feelings. He wanted a beautiful decoration that could be wheeled out for photos and put away when he was done. But it wasn't just the control that was destroying Marla. It was the complete lack of genuine intimacy in their marriage. According to those closest to her, Trump was incapable of real emotional connection. Everything was transactional. Everything was about image. Everything was about what served his needs in that moment. She used to say it was like being married to a corporation, not a person, revealed one friend who spoke on condition of anonymity. He could turn the charm on and off like a switch, but there was never anything real underneath. No genuine warmth, no authentic love, no real interest in who she was as a human being. The birth of their daughter Tiffany in 1993 should have brought them closer together. Instead, it revealed just how fundamentally different they were as people. While Marla threw herself into motherhood with genuine joy and dedication, Trump seemed to view his new daughter as just another photo opportunity. He was more interested in how having a baby would look in the press than in actually being a father, Marla later confided to a friend. I remember him holding Tiffany for photographers, but the moment the cameras stopped rolling, he'd hand her back to me. It was like she only existed when she was useful to his image. This period was when Marla began to realize that her entire marriage was built on a lie. The man she thought she'd fallen in love with had never really existed. It had all been an elaborate performance designed to get what he wanted. And what he wanted wasn't a life partner. It was a beautiful, compliant accessory to enhance his public image. The emotional abuse was subtle but constant. Trump would alternate between ignoring her completely and making cutting remarks about her intelligence, her career, her worth as a person. He had a particular talent for making her feel simultaneously invisible and constantly judged. He could make you feel like you were nothing with just a look, Marla reportedly shared during one of her most vulnerable conversations. And then he'd turn around and be charming to everyone else, leaving you wondering if you were going crazy or if he really was as cruel as he seemed in private. The isolation was perhaps the worst part. Trump systematically cut Marla off from her old life, her old friends, her own identity. She was expected to exist solely within his world, on his terms, for his benefit. Any attempt to maintain her independence was met with anger, manipulation, or cold indifference. "I stopped recognizing myself," she once admitted. "I looked in the mirror and saw this perfectly dressed, perfectly behaved woman who said all the right things and smiled at all the right moments. But inside, I was dying. The real me was disappearing, piece by piece." By the mid-1990s, Marla had become a ghost in her own life. The confident, vibrant woman who had once commanded attention on her own merit had been replaced by a carefully controlled version that existed solely to enhance Trump's image. She was beautiful, she was well-behaved, and she was completely, utterly miserable. But the breaking point was still to come. Because what Marla discovered about her husband's true nature in the final years of their marriage wouldn't just devastate her. It would fundamentally change how she viewed love, trust, and human nature itself. The mask had fallen away completely, and what she saw underneath would haunt her for decades to come. The final betrayal, why Marla really left. By 1997, Marla Maples had endured 6 years of emotional manipulation, systematic isolation, and psychological abuse disguised as marriage. But it wasn't any of these things that finally gave her the strength to leave. It was a single moment of clarity that revealed the true depth of Donald Trump's deception and the shocking realization that everything about their entire relationship had been a calculated lie. The revelation came during what should have been a private family moment. According to sources close to Marla, she overheard a phone conversation that shattered every remaining illusion she had about her marriage. Trump was talking to a business associate, and he wasn't just discussing deals, he was discussing her. "He was talking about me like I was a business asset," Marla reportedly told her closest friend years later. "Not like a person, not like his wife, not even like someone he once claimed to love. I was just a thing he owned. Something that had served its purpose and was now becoming inconvenient." But it wasn't just the coldness of his words that destroyed her. It was what he revealed about their entire relationship. In that conversation, Trump allegedly admitted that marrying Marla had always been about cleaning up the scandal from his affair, about rehabilitating his image after the messy divorce from Ivana. She hadn't been chosen for love. She'd been chosen for damage control. Everything had been fake, she later confided. Every "I love you," every promise, every moment I thought was genuine. It had all been part of some sick game to him. I wasn't his wife, I was his PR strategy. The conversation revealed something even more devastating. Trump had been planning to divorce her almost from the moment they married. The prenuptial agreement, the way he'd structured their finances, the systematic isolation from her support system. It had all been designed to make their inevitable divorce as advantageous as possible for him. "I realized he'd been planning my exit since our wedding day," Marla reportedly said through tears. While I was trying to be the perfect wife, he was already calculating how to get rid of me with minimal damage to his reputation and his wallet. This wasn't just betrayal. It was the complete destruction of everything Marla had believed about love, trust, and human decency. The man she'd married hadn't just been indifferent to her happiness. He'd been actively working against it from day one. The psychological impact was devastating. Years later, Marla would describe this period as the darkest of her life. She'd lost her sense of self, her ability to trust her own judgment, and her faith in authentic human connection. She'd been so thoroughly manipulated that she questioned everything about her own reality. "I didn't know who I was anymore," she later admitted. "He'd convinced me I was nothing without him, that I was lucky he'd chosen me, that no one else would ever want me. And for a long time, I believed it." But something in that overheard conversation finally broke through the fog of manipulation. Maybe it was the casual cruelty in his voice, or the way he laughed about how easy it had been to control her. Whatever it was, it sparked a flame of rage that cut through years of systematic psychological abuse. "I got angry," she later revealed. "Really, truly angry for the first time in years, and that anger saved my life." The divorce proceedings were swift but brutal. True to form, Trump tried to paint Marla as an opportunistic gold digger while portraying himself as the victim of a woman who'd married him for money. The irony wasn't lost on those who knew the truth. He was accusing her of exactly what he'd done to her. But Marla didn't fight back publicly. She didn't give tell-all interviews or write exposé books. Instead, she chose a different kind of revenge. She chose to disappear from his narrative entirely. She took their daughter and quietly rebuilt her life, refusing to give Trump the satisfaction of a public battle. The best revenge wasn't destroying him, she reportedly told a friend. It was healing myself. It was refusing to let him define who I was anymore. It was taking back my life and my daughter's life and building something real, something honest, something he could never touch or control. For years, Marla maintained her silence about the true nature of their marriage. She raised Tiffany alone, rebuilt her career, and slowly, painfully, learned to trust again. She dated, she traveled, she rediscovered who she was when she wasn't being controlled and manipulated. But the scars ran deep. Friends from this period report that Marla struggled with relationships, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, always looking for signs of manipulation or control. The woman who had once been so open and trusting had been fundamentally changed by her experience with Trump. She was gun-shy for years, one close friend revealed. Every time a man showed interest, she'd analyze it to death. Was he genuine? What did he really want? Was she being manipulated again? It took her a long time to believe that not everyone was like Donald. It would be decades before Marla finally felt strong enough to speak her truth. But when she did, the revelations would shake the very foundation of how the world understood one of its most famous marriages and one of its most notorious divorces. The woman who had been systematically erased from her own life had finally found her voice again, and what she had to say would change everything. Marla Maples' story isn't just about surviving a bad marriage. It's about surviving the complete destruction of your sense of self and finding the strength to rebuild from nothing. For 20 years, she carried the weight of this truth alone, protecting not just herself, but her daughter from the full horror of what their family had really been. When she finally broke her silence, it wasn't for revenge or attention. It was because she realized that her story might help other women recognize the signs of psychological abuse before it's too late. The charming manipulation, the systematic isolation, the gradual erosion of self-worth. These are patterns that destroy lives every day. "I don't want anyone else to lose themselves the way I did," Marla reportedly said. "If my story helps even one woman walk away sooner, if it helps someone recognize that they deserve real love, not manipulation disguised as love, then maybe all those years of pain will have meant something." Today, Marla Maples is a survivor in the truest sense. She's raised a daughter who knows her worth, built a life based on authenticity rather than image, and learned to love again, starting with loving herself. The woman who was once erased from her own story has become the author of her own destiny. Her journey from victim to survivor to thriver is a testament to the incredible resilience of the human spirit. It's proof that no matter how completely someone tries to control and define you, your true self can never be permanently destroyed. It can be buried, it can be hidden, it can be forgotten for a while, but it's always there, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Marla's story reminds us that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from everything you thought you wanted, in pursuit of something real. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't getting revenge on those who hurt you. It's healing yourself and building a life they could never touch or taint. If this story moved you, if it opened your eyes to the reality behind one of America's most talked about divorces, then like this video and subscribe for more untold truths behind the headlines. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever recognized these patterns in your own life or the lives of people you care about? And if you want to understand more about the complex web of relationships that shaped American politics, watch our next video about the women who knew Donald Trump best and what they really thought of the man behind the public persona. The truth is always more complicated than the headlines suggest, and these stories matter more than you might think. Remember, your story matters, your truth matters, and you deserve love that builds you up instead of tearing you down. Don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, make sure to like this video and subscribe so we can keep bringing you the truth behind the headlines.